Greetings and salutations, denizens of the multiverse. This is the Multiversal Archivist coming at you with another video. Today, we're talking about Avengers Twilight. Issue 1 came out this week, and it was penned by Chip Zdarsky with art by Daniel Acuna. The book's synopsis reads as follows. In a gleaming new world of prosperity, Captain America is no more, but Steve Rogers still exists, floating through an America where freedom is an illusion, where the Avengers are strangers and his friends are long dead. But is the dream? Wait, is the dream? Well, that doesn't sound right at all. Hang on a second. Alright, pulling up the synopsis. No, there it is the dream. Well, somebody somewhere screwed up. How do you assemble Avengers in a world that doesn't want them? Broken synopsises aside, how do the old man Avengers stack up? Does the comic do anything we haven't seen before? Let's crack it open and figure it out together, shall we? Like I did with my Ultimate Spider-Man coverage, I'll start with a spoiler-free review and then move into spoilers properly. So what did I think of Avengers Twilight? I didn't hate it, but I also wouldn't say it rocked the formula too much. It's certainly no Kingdom Come, even if the artwork and the premise have heavy Kingdom Come vibes. That's not to say I didn't like it. That's just to say that as far as the it's the future and things are bad premise go, this is all stuff we've seen before. It's not exactly treading new ground in that regard. Themes like oppressive governments, outlawed heroes, and Big Brother watching are all present in this book. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a decent setup for a story. We know this because it's been done time and time again. And I hope it will separate itself from similar themed stories as time passes. For now, I think it's worth a read, but if you're tired of these sorts of stories, maybe wait to see if it gains more of an identity down the line. If I was putting a letter grade to it, I'd give it a solid B. A samey presence isn't necessarily a bad thing as long as the writing is good. And I did think the writing was good and the artwork was pretty colorful and bright. I did like the overall presentation, even if it was very Kingdom Come-like. So yeah, I'm thinking a solid B. Of course, you can also subscribe to this channel and continue to follow my coverage of Avengers Twilight. For now, let's go ahead and get into spoiler territory. Leave now or forever hold your peace. This is your 1 minute warning. Okay, maybe it's not a minute. Maybe it's right now. Yeah. Yep. Alright, we're going to go ahead and start. Our story begins with Old Man Steve, a drained Steve who has settled down and is living with a woman named Rosa and doing old man things. At one point she mentions that he feeds pigeons, which I think is adorable. Interestingly enough, Rosa isn't given a last name. She doesn't look immediately familiar to me, but the artwork makes it hard to tell faces. If you know who she is, comment down below. After some time flirting with Rosa, Old Man Steve goes for a walk in the park. He inner monologues about the world and events we haven't learned about yet. Ultimately, Steve meets Luke Cage and Matt Murdock at the park. We find out later that Luke's impenetrable skin has started to make him immobile. That was one of the little personal touches I really liked regarding the story. We find out that Matt is still fighting the good fight over at his law firm. He makes comments about something called the Watcher Act and Hydra. Matt, being Matt, makes a comment about Steve not doing anything about the current state of the world as well. This is when we learn that Steve tried to run for office, but nothing came of it. According to him, he's nothing but an old soldier wishing for days gone by. With that being said, a new docuseries later forces him back into semi-action. Apparently, the infamous Red Skull was secretly working behind the scenes in the Nazi party to take down Hitler. He's nothing but a hero, gods darn it. The docuseries claims that Red Skull sacrificed everything to get this done. Why, he's a regular American hero. Now, as you can imagine, this upsets Steve, just a bit. Just a bit of Old Man Steve angry. So much so that he decides to have a tete-a-tete with James Stark on TV. James Stark, Steve calls him Jimmy, is the son of Janet and Tony. So far, he's my least favorite part of the story. It's also very weird to think of Janet and Tony together, but that's only because I really like the MCU's handling of all of this. And by this, I mean the Pym family. That might be a video for another day. Stay tuned and find out. But back to Jimmy Boy, he feels the most generic of the cast so far. He's seemingly a lot like his father before the cave changed him. He doesn't wear the iron armor himself, but an Iron Man is running around, so I'm curious if that'll be anything. But like most Starks that haven't been in a life-threatening situation, he likes to drink and party. Now there is one more interesting thing we find out about Jimmy Boy, but we'll circle back to that. For now, let's find out what happened on H-Day, or, as they refer to it in this universe, Hero Day. In this universe, Hero Day was an event masterminded by Ultron himself. Ultron enhanced a bunch of supervillains and then used a mind-controlled Hulk to level Boston. Now, this apparently woke the public up to the dangers of superheroes and supervillains and led to a lot of the current situation. Again, this is something we've seen before. An out-of-control villain enhanced many other villains and many people died because of it. And because this was superhero antics, the public blames the heroes themselves for it. Again, this comic straight up rips off of Kingdom Come in many ways. That aside, Jimmy Boy is quick to point out his narrative. Ultron was created by an Avenger, and Bruce himself was an Avenger. Jimmy Boy claims Steve doesn't know what a real hero looks like and questions why anyone should believe him about Red Skull in the first place. Pushing old man Steve's buttons causes him to walk off the stage with an almighty huff. As Steve leaves the station, he has flashbacks to the events of H-Day, and we, the audience, get a little more color on the traumatic events. Apparently, when Ultron did his thing, everyone's secret IDs were outed. Major heroes were lured back to their loved ones and ambushed by these out-of-control Ultron-enhanced villains. In the first of what I assume are many major deaths for comic book shock value, Steve comes upon our favorite webhead near death. Before Peter dies, he gets Steve to promise to take care of his aunt before trying to say his name. Poor Peter doesn't quite manage it, however, and instead he dies. It's rough stuff. Steve does call Peter the best of them, which I do appreciate. I always really enjoy it when characters give Peter the credit he deserves, when he's treated less as a joke character and more as a really good, honest guy. There's this really great moment in War of the Realms when Thor calls Peter the best Midgardian he knows. It's really good stuff. But back to the comic at hand. So Steve emerges from his flashback and finds himself accosted by the Iron Cops. Apparently James is outfitting the new Iron Man, the Army, and the police. This world has a curfew in place, and the Iron Cops bully Old Man Steve into going home. Before he can, the Iron Cops start strong-arming a group of youths, recording themselves doing totally tubular skateboard tricks. Rad jokes aside, the situation quickly escalates. Steve has his Dark Knight Returns, you have no idea who you're messing with moment before trying to kick the Iron Cops' butt. He holds his own for all but a second before they club him in the back of the head and start beating up on him. Apparently in this universe it's okay to beat up on old men. Before they can beat up an old man too much, Steve is saved by the Defenders. And by Defenders, I mean a bunch of guys in raincoats, beaked hoods, and masks. They're easily my favorite part of the comic book. They look so cool, and they use baseball bats, which tickle me pink. After they get done beating up the Iron Cops, the Defenders throw a bag over Steve's head and take him off to locations unknown. Now, at this point, the scene technically shifts back to Jimmy Boy Stark, but we'll get to him in a mo. For now, let's stick with Steve. Steve finds himself in front of Luke Cage. Luke starts talking about a war and reveals that Matt is dead, which is really confusing for both Steve and the reader since we, just saw him. There's also no establishment of time in this comic. Steve goes right from being mad about the Red Skull thing to the interview. Has it been days since he saw Matt, or did we meet Matt on the same day he died? To me, it comes out of nowhere. But then again, the pacing in this comic book is kind of all over the place. Luke gives a summary of how bad the world is that echoes the usual case of, you don't know how bad the world really is rhetoric. Finally, Luke cuts to the chase. He wants Steve to rally the people and show them the truth. Steve reminds Luke that he couldn't even protect the skateboarders, and that's when Luke drops his last bombshell. He can turn Steve back into Captain America. Now, Steve has mentioned before that he's been drained of his super soldier serum. And it's not explained how they can do that being giving him back his powers, besides we've been working on replicating the super soldier formula. Now, they do mention they wanted to use it on one of their own, but it didn't work. And Steve alludes that it only works on some, not all. I do think it's a little weird that they just have the ability to turn him back into Captain America, but I'll allow it in favor of getting the plot moving. Luke wants Steve to be Captain America and get the Avengers back together, while the Defenders run around as a shadow group and basically ganking people with baseball bats. Which, to be fair, is an idea I love. I'm all for baseball bat ganking. I love less that some random named Amy runs the Defenders, but hopefully they'll give her a chance to show off her skills soon. And I'm not one of those people that think every new character has to be a legacy character. It just would have been nice to learn a little bit more about her, besides, oh, she used to be S.H.I.E.L.D. As their last call to action, they show Steve a set of pictures. Apparently the system is rounding up citizens and abusing them. They show Steve these pictures, and that's what pushes him to become Captain America again. Steve leaves a message to Rosa telling her he won't be home for a while. He says there's something he has to do, and that something is assembling the Avengers. Now, before I give my final thoughts, let's circle back to James, or Jimmy Boy Stark. Now this is super brief, but it's probably the most interesting thing about Jimmy Boy Stark so far. At one point, we find out that the president is pressuring Jimmy Boy to make even more fantastic armor. He complains that he just finished making the armor super fabulous and now needs to make it ultra fabulous. His CEO, Eddie Jarvis, mentions going to the raft to come up with something. However, we don't find out what that means right away. But when we do, oh boy. Apparently, what it means is that Jimmy Boy should go put on an Iron Man helmet, plug into the head of his father, and do potentially irreparable harm to his father's brain. At least, that's what I assume is happening because the picture isn't clear. It's not like his father's head is just in a jar like a bit from Futurama. It seems more like his head, his neck, and his torso. Or at the very least, his shoulders. It's really strange looking. And it's one of the few cases where the art doesn't really help because I couldn't really make heads or tails of it at first. Whatever it is, it's super creepy and obviously being kept hush-hush. I have so many questions. Is Jimmy Boy just absolutely useless? Is Tony potentially taking over his kid's mind? Are we getting a Doc Ock superior Spider-Man but superior Iron Man thing? What's going on here? Most of all, I can't wait to see how Steve reacts to the reveal. Honestly, those questions might be what keeps me coming back on this one. But final thoughts. It wasn't bad. It wasn't good. It's kind of a mixed bag, to be honest. I think it does do too much of what has already been done before, though. Some of the plot points are beat from Kingdom Come. That's really sad, because that's a really good comic, and I think the Avengers could have done a little bit more with it. But what did you guys think? Sound off in the comments below. For now, this has been the Multiversal Archivist. Keep calm, and don't talk to sentient toasters from outer space.